Right. Yeah, so this story is taken from the Time of the End magazine. So I just thought maybe let us remind ourselves uh, with this story. So the two rivers. I would like to start by sharing this famous quote in this movement. This is Testimonies, Volume 9, page 11. So I would like to read because I think this quotation has a relevance in our history as we are here today. It is really talking about what is happening now, though it was written 1900s, 1906, around there, but it is really speaking to our history. We are living in the time of the end. The fast fulfilling signs of the times declare that the coming of Christ is near at hand. The days in which we live are solemn and important. The Spirit of God is gradually but surely being withdrawn from the earth. Plagues and judgments are already falling upon the despisers of the grace of God. The calamities by land and sea, the unsettled state of society, the alarms of war are portentous. They focus approaching events of the greatest magnitude. The agencies of evil are combining their forces and consolidating. They are strengthening for the last great crisis. Great changes are soon to take place in our world, and the final movements will be rapid ones. The condition of the condition of things in the world shows that troublous times are right upon us. The daily papers are full of the daily papers are full of indications of a terrible conflict in the near future. Bold robberies are of frequent occurrence. Strikes are common. Thefts and murders are committed on every hand. Men possessed of demons are taking the lives of men, women, and little children. Men have become infatuated with vice, and every species of evil prevails. The enemy has succeeded in perverting justice and in filling men's heart with a desire for selfish gain. Justice standeth afar off, for truth is fallen in the street, and equity cannot enter. In the great cities, there are multitudes living in poverty and wretchedness, well nigh destitute of food, shelter, and clothing, while in the same cities are those who have more than heart could wish, who live luxuriously, spending their money on richly furnished houses, on personal adornment, or worse still, upon the gratification of sensual appetite, upon liquor, tobacco, and other things that destroy the powers of the brain, unbalance the mind, and debase the soul. The crises of starving humanity are coming up before God, while by every species of oppression and extortion, men are piling up colossal fortunes. There are not many, even among educators and statesmen, who comprehend the causes that underlie the present state of society. Those who hold the reins of government are not able to solve the problem of moral corruption, poverty, pauperism, and increasing crime. They are struggling in vain to place business operations on a more secure basis. If men would give more heed to the teaching of God's word, they would find a solution of the problems that perplex them. The world is stirred with the spirit of war. The prophecy of the 11th chapter of Daniel has nearly reached its complete fulfillment. Soon the scenes of trouble spoken of in the prophecies will take place. So there's a lot here in this uh, quotation. It looks like it's like I'm reading what is on the news today. The things which are mentioned here, we hear about these things, we see them today happening on the news. Really, we are living in the last days. And one thing that stood out for me here is that it says justice. There's this place where it says the enemy has succeeded in perverting justice and in filling man's heart with the desire for selfish gain. So there's a lot of things we can say here. What is happening in America now with Donald Trump surrounding himself with these billionaires, and really you can see that it's all about this selfish gain, and justice standard afar off. There's no justice really today. Justice is perverted. I was just reading this article in the
Hello,
media.
Lucky.
Yes, hello,
Hello. So sorry
hello.
about that. So about disturbing. Sorry to disturb
Yes,
you. I just wanted to find out among us, is there anyone who can interpret? Anyone who can help with interpretation? Don't. Okay, maybe this. No one. Okay. It's okay, you can continue.
okay, thank you. So yeah, I was just saying there's no justice at all. I was reading this article from the media broadcast. This lady, this woman, Crystal Kaiser, was being abused by this man. Kaiser is a black woman. This other man, I forgot the name now, but the first name is Philip, something like that. Is a white man who's been abusing young black women. Women is targeting them. Somehow he's able to lure them into his house, and when they get to his house, he will abuse them with all manner of in different ways. He would even record, make videos while abusing them, you know. So, but eventually, this woman now, Crystal Kaiser, would get tired of this abuse. Somehow, he would have a gun in her bag while she was going to this man's house. It happened that when this man was pinning her down, according to her now, that she would pull a gun and shoot this guy, and this guy would die. And then when upon leaving, she would set the house on fire, right? So, but now what's standing out for me here is that this woman is gonna get arrested. She's a victim in this whole situation, but is gonna get arrested, and she's not going to even get uh, a chance to explain her side of why she did what she did, because she's trying to link what she did with the abuse she was suffering from this man. And what is amazing here is that this man, he went to jail just before this whole thing. He was arrested at once, and but the police, they release him. The evidence was there that this man was abusing women. They even had all these videos and all the evidence, but they released him, just like that. But the woman now that has killed him, he had to spend 2 years in jail before she gets the bail. But her case is still ongoing, and the life sentence is hanging upon her because she killed this man. So I mean, this is amazing. This is, I mean, even now she was able to get a victory now, but a victory of, it's not, the case hasn't even started. So she's getting a chance now even to get to the court and to explain herself, because it looks like she was not going to even get that opportunity to explain her side. So I was just highlighting this when it talks about the justice is perverted and you know amazing. So let's move on. So we go back to our story, the two rivers. The story is twofold. It's a twofold story. Let's read. It is impossible to give any idea of the experience of the people of God who shall be alive upon the earth when celestial glory and the repetition of the persecutions of the past are blended, right? We are talking about the last days, the things that are going to happen. The light that Daniel received from God was given especially for these last days. The visions he saw by the banks of the Ulai and the Hiddekel, the great rivers of China, are now in process of fulfillment, and all the events foretold will soon come to pass. So the visions Daniel saw by the banks of Ulai and Hiddekel are now in process of fulfillment. Let's read quickly just to familiarize ourselves with these two visions. Daniel 8 verse 1, in the 10th year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. I saw in a vision, and I was by the river Ulai. So this is where we take this vision, by the river Ulai. The river Hiddekel, Daniel 10:4, and on the 4th and 20th day of the first month, as I was by the side of the great river, which is Hiddekel. So this is another vision now, Daniel chapter 10. This vision will go through chapter 10 to 11. So these are these visions of Daniel. right? Let's have a look at the river Ulai. The vision of the banks of the Ulai, uh, found in Daniel 8, and the only part of the vision which had not been fulfilled when Ellen White made this statement was Daniel 8:14. So it's Daniel 8:14 that we want to focus on, because this is what had not been fulfilled at the time, uh, which began its fulfillment in 1844. However, it was and still is in process of fulfillment. When the Ulai flows into the sea, it ceases to exist. Likewise, when Christ finishes his work in the most holy place, the message of the everlasting gospel has finished its course. So this vision takes us to Daniel 8:14, and we know the story begins in 1844 when Christ moves from the holy place to the most holy place, right? And as we know, all the rivers, every river will take you to the sea. The rivers, all the rivers flow into the sea. So even the river Ulai will flow to the sea. And then it says, when it reaches the sea, it ceases to exist, right? And then it talks about the work of Christ beginning in 1844. And it's going to lead us through history to where it ceases. So we know the work of Christ in the most holy place will cease at the close of probation, right? When Michael stands up and he removes the priestly garments, and then he leaves the temple. So this is the story of the river Ulai. When we talk about the river Ulai, this is Daniel chapter 8, verse 14 in particular. We are marking the work of Christ in 1844, beginning in 1844, moving through history towards the close of probation, right? I hope we get this. And then we look at the river Hiddekel. The vision which was now in process of fulfillment that was given to Daniel by Hiddekel is the vision of the last 6 verses of Daniel 11. The only part of Daniel 11 which was as yet unfulfilled when Ellen White wrote those words, when the Hiddekel flows into the sea, it ceases to exist. And when the king of the north comes to his end, and none shall help. The message of Daniel 11 has reached its conclusion. So when we talk about the river Hiddekel, we are talking about the last 6 verses of Daniel 11. So this is from verse 40 to 45. We are familiar with these messages. It's just a reminder. So this is the story of the river Hiddekel, because this is the only part which was not yet fulfilled by the time Ellen White was writing this, according to this. So let's try to clear this up now. So when we talk about the river Hiddekel, we are talking about these last 6 verses, and we will see in a minute. This is when we are trying to focus on these external events, trying to understand the king of the north, trying to understand the external events as we know them from prophecy. But when we talk about the river Ulai, we are talking about Christ's ministry in his sanctuary in heaven. I think we're going to distinguish these like that. Let's continue. So there are two symbolic bodies of waters here. Two rivers flowing to two symbolic bodies of water. The Ulai is taking us to the Sea of Glass. The Hetikel is taking us to the lake of fire. So maybe let's put it like this. When we talk about the ministry of Christ in heaven, when we talk about the river Ulai, we are really talking about this connection, between God and his people. Yeah, let me put it that way. There's this connection between God and his people. So as we know that when Christ is in the most holy place here on earth as believers, we're supposed to have this connection with him, and we need to make sure that whatever we do on earth, we are benefited by what Christ is doing in heaven. So the river Ulai is talking about Christ and his people, basically. And then the Hetikel, it leads to the lake of fire. So the Hetikel, it is discussing this other kingdom. So maybe you can put it that way. You can put it God's kingdom, and then we have these kingdoms of the world. Because when we're discussing Hetikel, we are discussing the kingdoms of the world, and we know what they are doing. It is taking them to the lake of fire. So it's like Daniel chapter 2, it is, in Daniel chapter 2, you have a mountain and then you have a statue on this side. So you have these two kingdoms. So similar thing here we are dealing with, but using different symbol, the two rivers, the river Ula and the river Hedekel. It continues, two visions presenting both the story of the redeemed and the story of the lost, as we've said. So these visions, they are discussing these two stories, the story of the redeemed, the story of the lost. As the rivers flow into the sea, their messages cross the boundary line of human probation, forever separating the righteous and the wicked. So these rivers we are talking about, not only do they end at the close of probation, as we've said, from 1844, when we talk about the river Ulai, we said it leads through history to the close of probation, but it goes beyond that, because we know what happens at the end. The righteous will be separated with the wicked forever at the end. So this is what we are pointing here. We are tracing these two stories, these two kingdoms, or these two rivers, or these two stories, right from where we start to the end. All right. Let me just read this quote quickly. All who will describe to you the lamentations that will arise when at the boundary line which parts time and eternity, the righteous judge will lift up his voice and declare, it is too late. Long have the wide gates of heaven stood open, and the heavenly messengers have invited and entreated. Whosoever, let him take the water of life freely. Today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your heart. But at length the mandate goes forth. He that is unjust, let him be unjust still, and he that is filthy, let him be filthy still, and he that is righteous, let him be righteous still, and he that is holy, let him be holy still. So we are just emphasizing this separation of these two classes. In Revelation 14, we see this twofold theme found again. So it says here, the twofold theme found in the story of these two rivers is also illustrated in the three angels' messages of Revelation 14, right? So in Revelation 14, we find these two themes because that when the message goes forth, the first message, there is a group of people which is going to accept those messages or the three angels' messages, the people that will respond to the call, but we also have those people who will reject the call. So this is this other class. So even right there, we can see this twofold theme. And it continues. Not only do these three messages point mankind to the everlasting gospel in connection with the judgment, which is taking place in the most holy place of the sanctuary above, but these messages also identify the enemy power which will oppose this message during this final judgment hour. So you see, we have a message, or we have the work of God, and we have this opposing power in this message. So it is twofold like that. So we're going to have to understand this work in twofold so that we can understand what is happening here. So let's continue. Daniel and Revelation complement one another. So in the Revelation, all the books of the Bible meet an end. Here is the complement of the book of Daniel. One is a prophecy and the other a revelation. So what we are doing here, we are just tracing this twofold story. We are talking about the two rivers, and we know when we are talking about these two rivers, we are simply talking about these two kingdoms, if you like, or we are talking about, we are talking about the message and those who are opposing this message. Now, what we are doing here, because we're getting all this, the story of the two rivers, we are getting it from the book of Daniel. But now, since the book of Revelation complements the book of Daniel, in other words, they are related somehow, we want to show again that even in the book of Revelation, this idea of the two rivers can be found, right? Let's continue here. Daniel and Revelation complement one another in many areas, including the messages of the two rivers, which are used to identify the last fold message in the book of Daniel. The rivers find symbolic counterparts in the two rivers of Revelation. So even in the book of Revelation, there are two rivers. There we find the river of life for those who accept the everlasting gospel, while we also see the dried up Euphrates illustrating the bankruptcy of the worship of Babylon. So even in the book of Revelation, you have this idea, this concept of the two rivers, the river of life and the river Euphrates. So these are symbols, right, explaining the same thing, or at least there are those who are drinking in the river of life, and there are those who are symbolized again as having their river dried up, that river Euphrates, when it's dried up. Remember, the river Euphrates is that river that was flowing through Babylon in the ancient times, and it was a source of that city, Babylon. So when it is dried up, so it means really Babylon is bankrupt in this condition because that river used to supply Babylon. Let's continue. As we partake of the water of life, we are to call those who are drinking in the foul waters of the Euphrates to flee from the broken systems of fallen Babylon. So, yes, as we are saying, there are those who are drinking the water of life, and there are those who are drinking the foul waters. Let's continue. This final message, symbolized in the visions on the banks of the Hiddekel and Ulai rivers, identify both the false worship of the king of the north and the true worship of the king, which is now in the most holy place above. So, simply as that, the river, the river Hulai and the river Hiddekel is just symbolizing these two worships: the true worship of the king and the false worship of this king of the north. So even this phrase, two streams of information, it was borrowed from this story. When Elder Tess came and started to talk about the two streams of information, I just wanted to highlight that it was taken from this theme, or from this idea of these two rivers, the story of the two rivers, the river Ulai and the river Hiddekel. All right, we are not there. We are not doing that today. So I think I'm winding this up to a close. So before we close here, let's talk about the sealing. So we know that the message we are talking about, or the message that was opened up in 1989, it's a sealing message, right? Let us read a little bit here. What is the seal of the living God, which is placed in the foreheads of his people? It is a mark which angels, but not human eyes, can read. For the destroying angel must see this mark of redemption. So it is expounding from Ezekiel chapter 9 here. This is Ezekiel chapter 9, and it's expounding on that verse to say that there is a mark that needs to be put in God's people, in their foreheads, but it's not a mark that can be seen, right? And the destroying angels must see this mark. Otherwise, if you don't have this mark, something bad that is going to happen to you. Let's continue. The angel with the writer's inkhorn is to place a mark upon the foreheads of all who are separated from sin and sinners. And the destroying angel follows this angel. So we need to have a mark in our foreheads, right? And we know that we are talking about accepting these messages. And when we accept this message, and we have to live this message, right? So let's read here. I think this is going to be our last. So it talks about the experience of the two rivers. So we need these experiences. We need both of these experiences. So this is what I want to emphasize in this story. So if you didn't understand, or maybe you didn't catch what exactly are we studying here, but at least uh, if you can catch what we are saying now. What we are saying now in closing, we need the experience of the two rivers. So the experience of the two rivers, the river Ulai, we have said it is Christ's ministry in heaven. It's connected with the message, with the ministry of Christ in the most holy place. So basically what it's emphasizing there, that the people of God have to needs to understand the work of Christ in the most holy place. So if you understand the work of Christ in the most holy place, you're gonna have this living testimony. Uh, the living testimony, it is understanding the work of Christ and really having this connection with Christ in heaven. If you understand that Christ is in the most holy place now, the way you're going to live here on earth, it is going to reflect that. It's going to be a different one. We are not going to be a careless people because we have this connection with Him in the most holy place, because we understand what Christ is doing in the most holy place. So we will live a holy life. We will accept the message and we'll live by it. So let me read this quotation, then we can talk more. Just as soon as the people of God are sealed in their foreheads, it is not any seal or mark that can be seen, but a settling into the truth, both intellectually and spiritually, so they cannot be moved. Just as soon as God's people are sealed and prepared for the shaking, it will come. Indeed, it has begun already. The judgments of God are now upon the land to give us warning that we may know what is coming. So this sealing we are talking about, it is this settling in into the truth, both intellectually and spiritually. So we are saying these messages we are talking about, there's two ways of understanding them. You can understand them intellectually, right? This is why this message, as we are studying prophecies, it is easy to understand these events, the prophecies. It is easy for me to understand the prophecies, to even know how to teach these prophecies, you know, but I'm not settled in this truth spiritually, right? So, in other words, I don't have a connection with Christ in the most holy place. It is easy to fall into this trap. To understand this message intellectually, I can become a teacher of this message. I can teach it as I'm teaching it now, you know, but if I'm not settled in this message spiritually, it's not going to help me. So what it is encouraged here in this study is to hold these experiences, or which is to have both of these experiences. We need them both. In other words, we need the experience of the river Ulai, and we also need the experience of the river Hedekel, because the river Hedekel, you remember, it's talking about the last 6 verses of Daniel 11, and those are prophecies. This is when we are trying to follow what the king of the north and the king of the south is doing in these last days, right? So to follow the events as we always do, I am saying that I can do that, I can follow that message, I can accept it, or I can even teach it, because I'm holding it intellectually, right? But if I'm doing all of that and I'm not holding this message spiritually, that means I don't have the experience of the river Ulai. It, that means I don't have this connection with Christ in heaven, or I don't have this connection with him in the most holy place as he's interceding for me now. If I don't have that connection, so it means I'm really not holding this message spiritually. So I'm falling short somewhere. So we are encouraging to hold these visions, both of them, or to have these experiences, both of them. So in that way, I will be settling into the truth, both intellectually and spiritually. If I'm doing that, definitely I cannot be moved. But if I'm holding it one way or one side, on one side only, it's not going to help me. So I think that's the theme, or that's the lesson that I want us to take out from what I've read. That we need both of these experiences. We need to have the connection with Christ, and we also need this intellectual brain to be able to understand our message and to understand the external event, and even teach these messages as we do. So if we blend these together, we will be saved. Amen. We have come to the end of our study. I think it was a short one, right? And yeah. Any comments? Any questions or any clarity today? Let's give that opportunity. Right. Any question? Any comments? So,
Hi, Lucky.
hello.
Thank you for explaining these two rivers, the river of Ulai and the Hiddekel River. For understanding God, I hope if I continue reading all these verses you give, maybe I will come closer to what you've been explaining. I just want to say that. Thank you. And
Thank you. Thank you for that. What I will do also, I will post this presentation to the group so that we will be able to read for ourselves. Thank you. Thank you for that comment. Any question? Any comments before we close?
Hi, Lucky, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, I sent a question in the group name. It says that, like, can you repeat the last part about needing like the two streams, please?
Come again, the two streams.
Yeah, can you please repeat that part?
Where of the two streams of information?
No, the two, like, you said we needed both, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was asking is, can you please expand on that? Like, can you please repeat that?
All
I
right.
didn't hear you guys.
Okay, so let us see. All right, what I'm trying to conclude here by saying I'm saying these two rivers represent these two worships, there's the true worship and there's a false worship. This is when we began with this story. But now, with this conclusion now, I want to draw, because what is happening when we talk about the river Ulai, we heard that we are talking about Christ's ministry in heaven. So it is this connection of God's people of God's people with Christ's ministry in heaven. So it is this understanding of Daniel 8:14 and what Christ is doing in heaven for his people. And I'm saying this is when, as the people of God, are having this connection with God. And now the last 6 verses of Daniel 11, when we talk about the river Hiddekel, these events, we have the external events. This is the story of the king of the north and these external events, right? And this is just prophecy. This is prophecy when we are following what is happening in the world. And now I'm saying, I want to draw this passage I'm reading now, when it says, the seal that we have to receive, it is the settling into the truth intellectually and spiritually, so that we cannot be moved. I want to say now, this is when we understand this message we have to have this connection with God, and also we have to have this intellectual understanding of this message. So I'm saying we need both of these experiences. We need to understand this message intellectually, and that is following the prophecies. That's the river Hiddekel. This is where the last 6 verses of Daniel. This is when we are trying to understand the prophecies. That's fine. Spiritually, we need to have this connection with Christ. So this is like, if I can make an example now, we talk about the message of equality. So I can talk about the message of equality, but if I don't have this connection with Christ, I'm not going to live up to this message. It is only in words, it is only in understanding it and even teaching it, but I'm not living it. So this is where I want to draw a difference here, that we need this connection, this living testimony. And we, according to this study now, we can only get that when we have this connection with Christ, as he's doing a work for us in the most holy place. So it is basically talking about this message of equality we accept the message, we know it, we understand it intellectually, but also we have to live up to this message, or live accordingly, or according to this message. This is when we understand it, or this is when we live it. So we are saying we need both of those experiences. I want to understand the message of equality intellectually, but I also want to live it, to practice what I teach, I preach. So when we put these together, it will save us. And this is the sealing. I'm not sure if I'm putting myself clear there.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you for that question. So yeah, so this is another way of putting it. The river Ulai and the river Hedekel. These are two experiences, and we need them both. So we need both of them, and then it's gonna save us. If I have only an experience of the river Hedekel only, it's not going to save me. If I also have the experience of the river Ulai without the experience of the river Hedekel, it's not going to save me. So I need them both intellectually and spiritually. Then when we do that, we cannot be moved. So yeah, it is simply as that. We cannot be moved when we hold these together. So
Hello?
yeah, hello.
Yes. So I just wanted to express it, I think, in a different way. I'm getting where the question from Nana was coming from. When
Yeah.
you are saying you need both or is it experiences? So in other words, Daniel chapter 2 is gonna give us a simple illustration of the two themes. So in other words, you are saying Daniel 8 is the theme of the sanctuary, right? And then which is represented by the river Olai. And then Hiddekel, it's the theme of the prophecies, the events. So in the literal sense of the rivers, it's pointing that one river points to life eternal, and then one points to life to death. So I think, yeah, that's where maybe the not confusion, but when you say you need both, when in the literal sense the two rivers are pointing to different directions, I think that's where I was trying to understand the distinction.
And
All right. I see. I see.
sorry to
Yeah.
disturb. I'm sorry. That's one of the reasons why I asked, because the other one leads to death and the other one leads to life. But as I looked at heard Ulaki Catholic, I think I did. He's talking
Okay.
about one river being intellectual and the other one being spiritual, and saying that we need both those things. I think that's the perspective that is focusing on.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
If
So
you can correct me if I'm wrong.
okay.
all right.
Okay.
So
Can
yeah.
I add that like to that? Or you can make your point and then I'll add to what Nana was
Okay.
saying.
Okay. So yeah. So what I'm trying to say, or what it was trying to say, is that we do have the story. There's two stories here, right? Daniel 8, Daniel 10, the story of the two rivers, the river Ulai, the river Hedekel. And it explains what this means. It's the ministry of Christ in heaven, and it's also the last 6 verses of Daniel 11. So what we get from this is, okay, the river Hiddekel discusses the prophecies, and the river Ulai discusses the story of Daniel 8:14, the story of Christ in heaven. And yes, these two stories are leading into separate destinations. The one is leading to the sea of glass, and the other is leading into the lake of fire, right? So, but from this now, separate from what we've already said, we understand that when we talk about Daniel 8, Christ's ministry in heaven, we are simply talking about what Christ is doing for us there in heaven, you know. And when we are discussing the last 6 verses, the river Hiddekel, we are talking about prophecies. We're following the events. And then, so this is just what I wanted now, separate from what we've discussed, or I'm trying to narrow it down now to what I want us to get from this. And we are just saying when we are talking about the last 6 verses, we are talking about prophecy. When we talk about what Christ is doing for us there, it is this connection we have with Christ. And I'm saying we need both of these experiences. I'm just talking about now what we can get from these twofold story we are discussing. We need these two experiences because we are required to understand both of these visions of these stories. We are required to understand them. So we are required to understand prophecies. We are also required to understand what Christ is doing for us in heaven. This is what us now as the people of God, what we need to do with all this we have here about these two rivers. So it boils down now. It boils down to these two experiences. We need to be settled into the truth, both intellectually and spiritually. And this is what we need, and we need to put these together now. I'm not sure if I'm putting myself clear on what I'm trying to draw as my punchline as we finish. You can come in, Melton.
Okay, yes, I get you. And yeah, so I think just to add on that clarity to say, when you look at the application which was made of the two streams, it's not in this context, which means you are simply saying there are two visions and two stories. One story about the ministry of Christ, and then the story of the events that happen on earth. And this give us an experience that will lead us to salvation, right? In simple terms. But we know that these stories are going to create two groups at the end of the world, right?
Yeah.
If I'm following what you were sharing and reminding us. So in other words, as you are combining to say in this theme, both rivers are teaching these two themes which are essential for us to reach to our destination. Yeah, I think I get that part.
Yeah. So this is what we are trying to get out of this. We know the rivers are two streams, and they are leading to different streams. We're discussing the people of God, and we're discussing the people, the other group, right? So they are separate. But now, as the people of God today, us, we are reading about this, and we are also understanding both of these groups. This is what we are trying to do. We are understanding what Christ is doing in heaven, and we are also understanding the events as they unfold. So both of these will give us this experience. We need these understandings. We need these two understandings. That's why we are doing it. Because some people will ask, why are we spending time trying to understand prophecies or trying to understand the events? Why don't we just focus on having this experience with Christ, and then trying to understand what Christ is doing for us in heaven, and let's have this connection with God and forget about prophecies. So this is what many churches do. So they are just worried about this relationship with Christ, not paying attention on the prophecies. So, but us here, we are trying to understand both of these. It's important to us to understand both of these streams, and this is where this is why our connection with Christ will be complete, and this is the sealing. Maybe I'm failing to put it in words, but I think you get the point.
Hi. I think what confuses me, I think, and Milton too, is how you talk about two concepts at the same time. The first concept is where we need the two experiences, ne? And the other concept, you're saying that the two experiences, one is life and one is death. So, like, it's you are combining two perspectives. The other one is like saying the other river is it's death, the other one is life. That we get, but there's also this other perspective that you're giving that they kind of contradict each other, because the other perspective is saying that one river is life, one river is death, and because obviously the other one is dead, we don't need that, we have to follow like the other one. And then in the other perspective, you're saying that this thing is we need both of them. You know, it's kind of confusing. That's why I start, like, when I understood you, I only stuck with one perspective, which is when you were saying that we need both experiences, intellectual and spiritual, to connect with God. But I think what's confusing to most is because like you're combining the two concepts and making them like one. That's like the whole what I was confused about. But I get the point you're trying to make though.
Yeah, I think the word that is confusing, it's when I say the experience of the Hedekel and the experience of the Ulai, it sounds as if we're gonna have to, I don't know, we're gonna have to leave so I think I get what you are saying.
Hello?
But
Can I try?
yes.
Yeah, okay. So I think according to what Tina is saying, because of how we learned about the two streams when Elder Test made an application, I think we got a different perspective which changes the original understanding. In this sense, I think the simple part of, or the simple version of this is to say, these two streams in the terms of understanding the ministry of Christ in heaven. That ministry on its own creates two groups. And then in terms of prophecies, you can also have two streams of teachers who teach prophecies in two ways, which creates a different outcome or two different groups. So I think these symbols according to the way they were given by Daniel, they are given in their simple form. And the summary or the theme which Daniel gave, it's simple, but when you get to the complex, you are going to find out that it's not as straightforward as to say one theme represents one thing. Like to say Hideko represents only prophecy. We know prophecy is actually Christ's ministry. That's the other layer which is complex in that same sense. So I think that's where the confusion is coming in, to make one stream representing one thing. If you want to maintain it consistently, it's not one thing. So prophecies in themselves, you're actually teaching Christ within that. And then when you look at the sanctuary ministry, it's the other part of the ministry of Christ. So there is a theme, I think, of identifying two streams representing two groups who are doing two different things. It's one story which you are applying. But the way Daniel did it, he's giving both the messages which will identify God's people in one sense. I don't know if it's clearing.
Yeah. So
Yes.
so I think what is happening, because what I'm doing, I went back to the Time of the End magazine, you see, and try to show how even this phrase of two streams, or this whole idea of the two streams, if I can put it that way, how did we develop it? So it was taken from here in this simplest form, and this is how it was done. And then elder tests will come in, right? And then we'll use this similar concept to define her story, because he's going to want to talk about the two streams in as you've said now, in the prophecies, or two streams, whether it's in the church or whether it's in the world. So he's gonna dive into the complex of it now, as we are mentioning, to find the two streams everywhere, because this theme of the two stream, you will find it everywhere, whether it's internally or externally. But in the beginning, it was given in this simplest form to say, here are the two rivers, and then the one is leading to the Sea of Glass, and the one is leading to the Lake of Fire. The one is talking about Christ's ministry in heaven. The other is talking about the last 6 verses of Daniel 11. So I think what I wanted to do is just to show where do we get these concepts, because sometimes we will use this concept and we are not understanding, or we're not getting where do we come up with these. So this is just what happened in the beginning. I think we can try to see now, to even see how it was used when Elder Chess was coming with these themes. I'm not sure if we would say maybe it is not important to show where they're coming from. Maybe we need even to clarify that, or maybe it's not working for us now because we are dealing with the complex. Because I see now there simply is getting confused somehow with the complex as we are understanding them. But what I wanted to do is to deal with them as simply as they were, and to not even complicate it. This is why I didn't even want to go to the two streams of information, because it was something else later in the future, just to get them when these messages were given, and then try to see how they will work for us in this simple concept of the intellectual and the spiritual. This is what I wanted to, to just leave it at that. So I don't know. Am I making
Yes,
sense?
Lord. Yes, you are. I think it is important to go back. I think the only part that we are now maybe encouraged to do is when we are reviewing these foundational themes, I think we can try as much as to incorporate our current understanding, especially the fine summary of what we'll be saying when you're making your conclusion that we need both streams. Someone would think, what do we mean? Because in terms of two streams, it's all that which comes into mind. So I think when we go
Yeah.
back, there's nothing wrong with that. And it's important to remember how and where the concept came from. But I think we are now able to also to refine if our simple version was not clear enough or giving us the direction. Like in this sense, if you look at just the symbols themselves of the two streams, when you mention that the other stream represents Hideko and its prophecies, and if you are to come back to the end of the world and say one stream leads to death, you'll be actually saying prophecy leads to death because it's symbolized in a simple form of being the other alternative. Unless you add more information to say the simple was just saying this, but when we come now to the end of this, there's these complex layers but I think there's nothing wrong to go back to the foundational themes. It's actually a good exercise.
Yeah. So yeah. I think I feel like we're gonna have to revisit these things again. Maybe, just to iron some things out. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to really go back again to see uh, where these things are coming from. So yeah. No, I have enough today, but it was good conversation. So yeah, I think we can close. I think you will agree with me there, but I feel that we need to revisit this, even myself, to go through it again and really look at this, because I was trying to revisit that Time of the End magazine. So anyway, let's close with prayer. Tina, would you close for us, please?
Okay. Dear God in heaven, thank you for this wonderful presentation. Thank you for the truths that you continue opening to us and the understanding that you continue giving us. And please be with each and every one of us. Be with us for the rest of the week and the weekend and the Sabbath. And I thank you for each and everything that you do for us. We pray all these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. So thank you, everyone, for your time.
Like, thank you, everyone. I'm so sorry. I want to make an announcement before people leave. So the board is planning a mini Zoom meeting over the Easter weekends, and we need voluntary teachers. And for the School of the Prophet camp that is going